Yeah, I'm recording this. Okay. So business unit is just a term change from EBS, so which means that is an operating unit. So
Mm-hmm.
what we call as an operating unit is that some kind of an branch office or maybe a subset office which generates either the revenue or it incurs some sort of expenses.
Mm-hmm.
So there are different units that is involved when we speak about the company as a whole.
Mm-hmm.
So let's say I have an manufacturing unit. So in this manufacturing unit, I might have a unit where I will design this particular product, and I might have the packaging unit. I might have the inventory unit where I will store the raw material, and the other unit I will store the finished good, and maybe from there I'll do the sales. So I'll have a separate unit for selling the items, or I
Mm-hmm.
might have a showroom where I will just manufacture, I will pack it, and I'll put it in my showroom, and the other business is to sell it to the other customer, where the particular person will come to the inventory premise, and the particular person will get it built and take the uh, goods with them. So this will be the normal scenario. So in this case, so what we call as a business unit is that actual point of selling. So in this case, I have showroom. So my showroom will become an business unit for me. But
Mm-hmm.
whereas the place where I'm storing this items, and the unit where I'm processing it, and the unit I have the designing works involved in it. So these things will come under the SEM part, that is inventory arc and the master arcs.
Mm-hmm.
But in terms of financial units, I'll call this only as a business unit where actual revenue or the expense incurs.
Okay.
So I have an head office where I'll make the payments, or where I'll book the invoice for the expense that I have incurred. But
Mm-hmm.
whereas I will not do this in the inventory organization, like
Mm-hmm.
the place where I'm storing the raw materials.
Mm-hmm.
So this is the basic classification between the business unit and the inventory unit.
Mm.
So we have classified this is an revenue generating or expense arc for just making this unit. So I can create an inventory unit. I mean, I can create a business unit, and I can make use of for both the payables and the receivables.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll just add this, and I have something called reference data set. So here I can do two things. So one is that I can either attach the reference data set that is created already, or I
Mm-hmm.
can go ahead and create a new reference data set by clicking create.
Mm-hmm.
So basically, what is reference data set? So reference data set is kind of an what do you call, the classification or the category, which
Mm-hmm.
will group the particular setups or the transaction into one bucket. So in this
Mm-hmm.
case, we have taken one reference data set for one business unit. So which means whatever transaction I'm doing, it
Mm-hmm.
can be seen only in this particular business unit, or whatever setup that I'm doing. For example, payment term. So
Mm-hmm.
I'm setting up a payment term called maybe 10 days net. So
Mm-hmm.
this 10 days net can be utilized only by this particular business unit, since I have attached the reference data set called HWRDS. So this is the main purpose of having the reference data set. So it depends on the company security and the architecture that how we wanted to have it. Like for example, I can even have one reference data set for a ledger.
Mm-hmm.
So inside this one ledger, I might have even two legal entities. So under this one legal entity, I might have three business unit, and under this second legal entity, I will have two business group.
Mm-hmm.
So here I can create one particular reference data set called maybe HW reference data set, and I can attach this reference data set to all the business unit that is associated with this particular lecture. Or I can
Okay.
decide the other way, that I will create one reference data set for this particular BU and the other reference data set for the other BU. So this depends on the client's requirement, that how do we want to manage our data.
Mm-hmm. So, question here. So,
Yeah.
when we are doing this, right? So, you're creating a business unit. So, this will be done by who? By the functional consultant who's working on the GL itself, or there will be separate person. Let's assume there are multiple people doing each module.
Okay.
I know you're one man show, but uh, but otherwise, how is it done? Who does this setup?
Basically, this will be done either by the consultant who handles the GL module or
Okay.
the consultant who handles the AP modules.
Okay.
Because if you see the business unit classification or the creation of business unit will
Mm-hmm.
comes under the AP setup. But whereas if you see
The
here
navigation
in a
itself is, yeah,
yes, GL. So
GL.
either way it can be done because if you see in EBS, the operating
Mm-hmm.
units will be created when we are creating the ledger setup. So there itself we can create it. So
Mm-hmm.
similarly, mostly it will be handled by the GL consultant,
Okay.
but we don't have any restriction. It can be handled by the AP consultant as well.
Okay. And when you say default set, right, the reference data set is something that, so when we are attaching it here, right, we either can create it here or can we create it beforehand itself and keep it ready?
Yeah, we can create before itself. So we have this control in HCM. So in
Uh-huh.
HCM, basically we have a separate page to create this reference data set. So if we
Okay.
have created there, we can just attach it here, or we can
Okay.
just create it here. In financial
Yeah, yeah.
model, we don't have any specific form to create the reference data set. In HCM, we
Okay.
have this.
Okay. So when you, let's assume you're taking the financial offering and you just don't have any of the HCM offering tasks there. So you say you cannot go and create like, manage reference set or anything. You can't go like that and check.
No, here itself we can see. Like
Yeah,
if,
here itself, but otherwise there is no specific task in financials, right?
yeah,
Other than creating from here.
yeah, financial we don't have a specific
Okay.
task because if you see this is very small form, so Oracle didn't give big importance to this. If you see
Okay.
it, it will have only the code and the name, and if you want to add description, so we can add it.
Can
So
you give me a couple of examples for the reference data set? Just so that I know you spoke a lot about it, but just give me a few more examples.
okay, okay, just let me open the Excel sheet.
Yeah, I know one is that common set, right?
Yes, correct.
One is common set and one is something called the enterprise or something, but
Yes,
we use common for most of the things. That's what I remember from 3 years back. But
correct.
yeah. So reference data set can be used for location? No, I don't know. I don't remember. Let's see.
Location, yes, we can create. I mean, we can have a reference data set for location as well.
Okay. It's bits and pieces I remember, so I don't remember everything.
Okay, let's take a simple example. So where I
Mm,
have one ledger and
mm-hmm.
I have two legal entities.
Okay.
Yeah, in terms of financial, so this is my basic architecture where I'll have
Mm-hmm.
one ledger and I
Mm-hmm.
have five business units.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe one I have it in New York and the other one is in this one.
Mm-hmm.
So similarly, I have the other one in the same location, the
Mm-hmm.
same state I have it. So this will be my basic architecture. So
Okay.
in this case, I
Mm-hmm.
have two options. So I
Mm-hmm.
can create one particular reference data set
Mm-hmm.
called maybe HWRDS, and I
Okay.
can attach this particular reference data set to all. So what will happen
Okay.
is that all reference data set will share the common setup or the
Mm-hmm.
common page where we can do the transaction.
Okay.
So if I have attached this one particular reference data set to the BU1, BU2, and again BU1, 2, 3, so which
Mm-hmm.
means, for example, let me take the receivable. So I'm just trying to create a transaction type.
Okay.
So here, when I'm creating the transaction type,
Mm-hmm.
so what will happen is that transaction type will be set up on top of our reference data set. So
Mm-hmm.
after attaching it there, so we will have the legal entity to be attached. So after that, we will have the business unit. So
Mm-hmm.
what I will do is that I'll just add the business unit. But whereas on header level information, I have already attached the reference data set. So this way, I can minimize my setup. Similarly, I have the other setups in AP as well. Like let's say the payment terms. So instead of attaching my five business unit one by one, what I will do
Mm-hmm.
is that I will attach one reference data set called HWRTS, so
Okay.
that I can utilize this particular payment terms for all the business unit.
Okay.
So this is one point. And another point is that so we have basically three types: common, enterprise, and custom. So here what we are seeing is custom, and
Okay.
the other the options that is available is for the common and the enterprise. So
Mm-hmm.
enterprise is for as a whole. So this will be done by the HCM consultant. So in terms of
Okay.
finance, we will have only the common and we will have the custom.
Okay.
So when we will need custom is that when we are setting up or when we are creating the customer. So we
Okay.
cannot utilize the common from the list of values. We cannot even
Mm-hmm.
see the reference data set called common. So even the customer
Okay.
will be created on top of the reference data set. So there we will need the custom, which is specific to the particular ledger or the business unit. So that is where
Okay.
we have the role of the custom reference data set.
Okay. So it's basically only for receivables.
No, reference data, yes, custom is,
Custom. What
yes,
I'm talking
yes,
about is custom. Okay.
yes, correct, that's correct.
So, and then when you say payment terms, like let's say we have created HWRDS and that's the reference data set for payment terms.
Okay.
So when we say we are attaching this reference data set, so this payment terms, does it have only one payment term in that or does it have multiple payment terms in it?
No, this is only one payment term
One
that
payment
because
term.
yes, for
Okay.
example,
So like if we say net 30 will be applied to all the business units, both in legal entity 1 and legal entity 2.
yes, if I'm attaching HWRTS,
HDWRDS, and if we specify that it's immediate or whatever, net 30 or
yes. So in this
okay.
case, if I wanted to use maybe immediate and net 30, so what
Uh-huh.
I'll do is that I'll attach HWRDS to immediate and net 30, so that I can make use of both the payment terms.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So this is one thing, and the
Uh-huh.
other option that we have is that to create RDS for each of the business unit. So I would say maybe NYRDS and CALRDS, MYRDS. Similarly, I'll just add it to have more
Okay.
control on the access for the business unit.
Okay.
So the access can be restricted at this level, or we have access called the roles. So when we are customizing the role, so basically we can
Uh-huh.
customize for the particular user. So which means whatever role that we are giving to the user will be able to access only this particular functions.
Mm-hmm.
So there we can restrict a few things, and here in the reference data set we can restrict few things.
Okay.
Like if I'm giving specific, so which means this user called user one will
Mm-hmm.
not be able to access this particular the business unit called one.
Okay. So this is more like that MOAC, right?
More.
That EBS concept of where you have multiple whatever
Yes,
that
yes,
you
yes. Multi-org access control.
a
Yes,
multi or yeah, something. I
yes,
don't remember the full form, but
yeah.
okay.
Actually, there is
And
another product called Mohawk actually, so I was thinking about that.
oh, okay.
Yeah,
I don't know about that, but I was just trying to reference what I
yeah,
knew, and
yeah, yeah.
because that is also like you give access to specific operating
Yes,
units if you want to, right?
yes, yes, correct.
So this RDM, RD, yes, whatever the
Yeah,
reference data set is similar to that.
yeah, yes, it is similar to that. We
Okay.
cannot
And
say exactly same, but we
yeah,
can
yeah.
say, yeah,
But in terms of restrictions, you can use
yes,
this RDS.
yes.
Okay. And when you say common, right? Normally, what do we have in common?
So if you say common, basically I don't need to create any configuration, because if you see common, that will be
Hmm.
given as a default as a seeded value by Oracle. So this common will be attached to the immediate and net 30 by
Hmm.
default. We don't need
Oh,
to
by
do any
default. Okay.
yeah. So we don't need to do any configuration.
But when
But
we define payment terms, we do have to define all this immediate net 30 and all that, right? So that it get attached to common.
no, like if I wanted to use the immediate, I don't need to create it again. So what I'll do is that I'll just attach the RDS,
Okay.
HWRDS. I'll just attach to this payment term called immediate.
Okay. Okay.
So this will reduce our effort as well.
Okay. Yeah. Maybe once we start doing the configurations, I'll understand more.
Yeah, yeah. So in this case, I will just create the custom reference data set. So that is HWRDS.
But did you not say that custom can be used only for receivables?
No, no, it's not only for receivable, but receivable we cannot use the common. So that is where I told
Okay.
definitely we need to have the custom RDS.
No
But if
matter what. Okay.
yes,
Uh-huh.
yes,
Okay.
but
Got it.
yeah, but we don't have any restriction that we cannot use the custom. So anywhere we can
Oh,
use the
okay.
custom. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Because I was a little confused. I thought only for customer you use the custom thing and that was specific to receivables. But then, okay.
Yeah, we don't have
Either
any.
or.
Yeah, yes, correct. Yeah. So I have created the business unit. So now I
So
will.
do we have to give that location? It was not mandatory, right?
Yeah, the location is not mandatory. The reason why I gave the location part is that when we are dealing with the accounts receivable module, so we
Uh-huh.
have certain functions called customer refunds. So there, without the location part, we will not be able to process the payments.
Okay.
Yeah. So similarly, so for
Oh, so this is so you're thinking ahead in terms of if you want to use this reference data set not only in payables but in receivables also.
yes, correct.
So when you think in terms of that, that's when you have to give the location. But otherwise, if you're just talking about AP module itself, you may ignore that, right?
Yes, correct.
Okay, got it.
Yeah. So in EBS, I'll try to compare with EBS. So EBS, if you see, so how a system will understand that this particular business unit transaction that I'm making it
Mm-hmm.
will go or it will flow to only particular ledger called HWPL. So how the system understand is that through the profile option. So we have a
Mm-hmm.
profile option called the ledger name and the data access set. So
Mm-hmm.
using this two profile option, basically system will understand that this transaction that I'm creating in the HW AP module will
Mm-hmm.
flow to the ledger called HWPL. So similarly, here we are attaching the ledger and we are attaching the legal entity. The reason we are attaching ledger and legal entity is that we might have different legal entities, but when we say the ledger alone, so which means system will not understand this particular BU is under which legal entity. So that is the reason we are giving this ledger name and the legal entity. So I have attached both the primary ledger and the legal entity, and in the left side I have the business unit function. So which
Okay.
means this is another level of control where we can say that unless I select this particular options, I will not be
Mm-hmm.
able to even configure the system. So let's say I'm
Oh.
disabling this payable invoicing, so which means I
Mm-hmm.
cannot configure the payable invoice. System will give an error that the aura error, we will see few errors there.
Okay.
So similarly, if we want to set up the procurement agent, so
Mm-hmm.
basically we have a few difference here. So when we
Mm-hmm.
are creating the vendor, so
Mm-hmm.
anyone can create the vendor, but in
Mm-hmm.
order to create the vendor site, I need to have the proper access, which means
Mm-hmm.
I should be a procurement agent. So even the
Okay.
implementation consultant can create the supplier, but
Mm-hmm.
supplier site will be created only by the procurement agent. So that is the security that we have at Infusion.
Mm-hmm.
So in order to have the procurement agent configured, so we
Mm-hmm.
need to enable basically the procurement business function. So unless we give this option, we will not
Mm-hmm.
be able to configure the procurement agent.
So, okay, let me understand this. So, if somebody wants to do this, what do you call? You just explained, I forgot. Um, so, they need the security. One is that they have to enable the procurement here.
Yes.
And the second one is they should have the role of procurement agent,
No,
right?
no, it
No?
is not role. So it is kind of a configuration where we will say this particular employee is a procurement agent. So we will assign a business unit as well. So before that,
Okay.
we should enable it here.
So when you select the offerings and you check mark the tasks in it, right?
Yes.
So that doesn't give the access to the employees to do the functions.
No,
It only gives access to the consultant to go ahead and do the configurations or just try the test transactions.
yes, correct.
But then when if that consultant is able to do the these functions, so for him he doesn't have to specifically come and do anything. I mean enable any of these things.
No, basically the implementation consultant will be able to do only the setup. He will not be
Ah,
able to do any kind of transaction. So if
okay.
you see, the reason or how we are getting this journal entry page is through the general accountant. Basically, the general accountant role will not be utilized by the implementation consultant,
Mm-hmm.
because the role that we will be giving to the implementation consultant is only one thing: application
Configuration.
implementation consultant.
Okay.
So this role will allow us to do the configuration. So apart from this role, we will not give anything to them. So unless
Okay.
we are in the phase of UAT where we will need to test something, and
Mm-hmm.
we need to give it to the customer for the UAT. So that
Okay.
is when we will use this. But in real time, after go live or in production, basically this implementation consultant will not have any role in testing the transaction. So this will be
Yes.
only in the test environment or the development environment
Okay.
for the testing purpose alone. But
Mm-hmm.
apart from that, implementation consultant will only do configuration, but no setups are, I mean, no transactions are allowed to this particular consultant.
Okay. Let's assume I am the implementation consultant, and now, okay, I went ahead and created a user.
Okay.
Okay, I created a user and I'm doing my setups.
Okay.
Okay,
Okay.
I have started with, okay, I finished off GL, whatever is needed. Then I'm going to AP, where I've started off with creating this business unit.
Okay.
And then once I'm assigning this business unit functions. So if I assign these business unit functions, I don't have to assign any of the specific roles, right? I'll automatically have access to do these functions now. True or false?
No, can you repeat once again?
So what I'm saying is, let's say I've created, like you said, some TrainT, who's
Yes.
not an implementation consultant, but you've created a user and
Okay.
you've assigned his role as application, whatever, application implementation
Okay.
consultant and the security role.
Okay.
And he's going ahead and doing all this configurations. So
Okay.
when he's done with the, I mean, when he comes to this point, right, where he's doing the business unit,
Yeah.
assigning the business unit functions, so he goes and checks all these, enables all these functions.
Yeah.
So when he enables all these functions will automatically give him the access to go ahead and do the functions or the transactions, right?
No, this will not give access to the transaction. So this is to specify to the system that this particular implementation project will have access to configure or will be using this particular functionalities called the payables, receivables,
Hmm.
and inventory, project accounting, and the service request modules, the other things. So unless we enable it here, so we will not be able to configure. So after configuration, we will give the roles to the user, and based on those roles, user can do the transaction. So for
Okay.
example, if I wanted to create an invoice,
Hmm.
so I should first enable it here as an payable invoicing.
Okay.
And after enabling it here, so what I will do is that I will do the configuration for the payable module once I done with the general ledger configurations.
Okay.
So after this is done, I will configure. So once my entire configuration is done, so I will give access to the particular user, maybe user A.
Okay. Okay, got it. So these are actually more like the different modules, right, that you're giving access to.
Yes, correct.
Okay, got it.
Yeah. So this access is only for the configuration.
Okay.
Yeah.
So if you miss something in, let's say, while you are selecting the offering, right, when you check the multiple things that are there. So if you miss something also, it's not a big deal then. If you're actually checking or enabling the functions, the true functions here, if
Yeah.
you miss something while doing the offering is also fine, right? The
Yeah.
tasks.
Yeah. It. I mean, for few cases we will not have issues, but other cases I have seen issues. So
Okay.
where we are trying to set up this one procurement for, I mean, that is for a demo actually, demo to another client. So
Mm-hmm.
we missed to select this particular function called procurement. So
Okay.
after this, when we are trying to create the procurement agent, so that is when we realized that we didn't enable the procurement business function. So
Mm.
even after we enabling this particular function, we are not able to get the procurement agent configuration created.
Why
So
is that?
similarly, yeah, similarly we will have some effects. So it is good that we decide the business unit functions based on the licensing part, and after that we will enable it here so that we will not miss anything. So there are
So
few.
in your case, when you said you couldn't do anything after you realized that it was disabled,
Yeah.
was it because of the licensing issue?
No, it's not licensing
Okay.
because it was demo environment.
Mm.
So there we should be able to create any number of projects. So we don't have issue there. So the
Okay.
thing is that I should have enabled the procurement option before starting the transaction. But whereas
Uh,
I didn't enable this option, but I have started creating the transaction. But that is when I remembered the procurement agent and all those things. So I couldn't revert this back to the original stage.
uh. So, but can you come back and I mean, check this?
Yeah, we will be able to enable these options, but this will
Uh-huh.
not get effect actually. So if you see this, I have already created this setup. So
Mm-hmm.
we didn't select the ledger and the legal entity because I
Yes.
have selected it already. So if you
Mm-hmm.
see here, I can
Mm-hmm.
just select the project accounting
Okay.
and I can save also. So this will not give any error. So it
Okay.
will just ask us to validate it. So we will just
Mm-hmm.
validate it. But in few cases, I have seen that system will not work as expected. So that is why it is good to have enabled before going to the actual configuration like AP or AR.
Okay, so what's the workaround for that? Let's say you forgot, or let's say anybody can forget, right?
Yeah,
Checking any of these, and then I mean, like one of these, and then you realize that you come and you check this back, you enable it, and then but then you're saying it's still not effective because you enabled it later.
yeah.
But what is the workaround for that? How do we fix that?
Yeah, we don't have workaround for this. So only option that we have is that to raise an SR. So SR,
Uh,
the Oracle will give a data fits. So this data fits will be done by Oracle, where it will update a particular table. So by
okay,
updating this table, so we will have this enabled, or we will
included
have,
in that.
yes, correct.
Okay, okay,
Yeah, so that is we have it. But apart from that, we don't have workaround by ourselves basically. So we
okay.
need to contact Oracle for this.
Okay, then we need to be extra careful when we're enabling everything.
Yeah.
So when if that's the case, right? So normally what are the things that you enable in the sense like if you are let's say you're at a client's place and
Okay.
you're just enabling this based on the licenses that the client has, or what is the basis for you to check what are the things that you need?
Yeah. So this is based on the licensing part completely. So
Okay.
let's say I have taken licensing only for the AP module and the GL module. So
Mm-hmm.
since GL module I don't have any setup for the business unit functions. So I
Mm-hmm.
have only for the payable. So which means I will not select the billing and revenue management. I will
Mm-hmm.
not select the custom management, and I will not select this thing. So I'll select the procurement this thing in order
Mm-hmm.
to create the procurement agent. So apart from
Okay.
that, I'll enable the payable invoicing and customer
The
payments.
customer payment. Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
and I'll select the payables
Payables
payment.
payment.
Yeah, so
Okay.
these are the four options that I will select.
Okay. But do we can we get the list of these functions anywhere? I mean, like, is it there in the Oracle repository if you have to go and check? Like
Uh,
each module, what are the functions that are part of that module? Or generally, people, of course, experienced people will know what comes under it. But just just in case, do you have list of those anywhere?
no, I don't think we have list. Maybe I'll check and I'll get back to you, but I haven't seen
No,
list
no, that's fine.
actually.
I was
Yeah,
just curious. I
yeah,
know. I mean, looking at this, as I said, I could figure it out. Payables, wherever it said payments and all, I thought it comes under AP
yeah,
by general knowledge. But there could be some tricky ones, you may not realize if you're not familiar with it.
yeah.
So that's why I was thinking, do you have anything like a checklist of things, right? Check, it's there under this module or not.
Yeah, so maybe I can check this, but I mean, I haven't seen, so maybe I'll check this
No,
and
no, that's
uh,
fine.
I
That's
can
fine.
give. Yeah,
Yeah. Okay. I'm always curious. So
maybe.
because sometimes it's easy to forget, right? When you're
Yeah,
checking things.
yes,
So down the list, you may forget to check one thing like that, whatever that payable something payment or
yeah,
something was there.
yes,
So,
yes. Yeah. So we have done two setups. So one is creating the business unit, and the other one is to enabling the functions to the business unit. So the third setup would be to give the particular access to the user.
hmm
So to give the access to the user, we have two parts to it. So we will assign the particular role to the user. So
hmm
after assigning the role to the user, we will give the access here. So in this
hmm
case, I'll take user called TrainT.
Mm-hmm.
So for this user, I should first attach the role called maybe the
Mm-hmm.
accounts payable manager. So since I have attached it to this user
Mm-hmm.
in the security console, I'm seeing it
Mm-hmm.
here under the role. So unless
Mm-hmm.
I attach it there, I'll not be able to see it here.
Mm.
So
Okay.
after attaching it, so I have the security context. So this
Mm-hmm.
is based on the role that we are selecting.
Mm-hmm.
So since we have selected accounts payable manager, we are seeing only one option called business unit. So in
Mm-hmm.
case if I'm selecting a role called general accountant, so where I will see only the data access set. If you see here, so we have
Mm.
only data access set. So I will just give the data access set.
Okay. So if you gave the manager, what was the option that we had? Sorry, I just
Accounts payable manager.
yeah. So what was the security context that we saw?
Yeah,
They were
business.
one. They were just the business unit. Okay.
So here I'll mention the business unit that we created. So ours is HW business unit. So I'll
Mm-hmm.
just take this one.
Okay.
Yeah, similarly for all the users, we can just give the access here.
Mm-hmm.
And if we wanted to see the list of access that we have given, so we
Mm-hmm.
can select user with data access and
Mm-hmm.
we can select the security context. So we will
Okay.
have different parameters. So we can
Okay.
select by asset or we can select by business unit, data access it, or the intercompany, inventory or ledger. So
Mm.
different things are there. Yeah. So
Mm-hmm.
after this, we will have the unit specific assignment. So whether we wanted to give this one like access to this particular functions. So
Mm-hmm.
this will be mostly specific to our this thing SEM related things. So if you
Mm.
see the site level access and these things. So
Okay.
cancellation reasons and these things. So this is for AR actually. So when we
Okay.
are returning this particular receipt, so we will
Mm-hmm.
have the cancellation reason. So there we
Mm-hmm.
will have the reference data set objects.
Okay.
So here we are attaching the HWRDs. So similarly,
Okay.
if we wanted to attach the different reference data set, we can attach it. So
Mm-hmm.
based on our latest configuration, system will automatically attach this one. So this I
Okay.
didn't do anything. So
Okay.
in case if you wanted to change, we can change this.
Mm-hmm. So, but what is specific to AP? So we just have what, or
Yeah. Yeah, specific to AP, we have one thing is hold, and
okay.
apart from that, we will have the payment related few things as well. Yeah, we have this one payment terms.
Okay.
Yeah, so similarly, we have I mean more of receivables.
Mm-hmm.
For payables, we have very less actually.
Oh, so that's why you were saying payables is easy to take certification. Good. At least something will be there in payables. Okay. Receivables, there are a whole bunch of things, right?
Yeah,
Oh boy.
yeah. So we have done the configuration for the business unit. So
Mm-hmm.
we can click this one to start with our payable configuration. So we should basically start with define invoicing and payments configuration.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll
So
just
this all these configurations, the folders that are there, don't specifically come under AP or anything. It's like under common things, like under financials, you have all this.
yes, correct.
Okay.
So
But it,
financial we
but
don't.
it doesn't specifically say whether it's AP, AR, or not distinct.
Yeah, we don't have it in Fusion. Basically, we had it in EBS, but
Mm-hmm.
here Oracle has plugged into one thing called financial. So
Okay.
the offerings they call financial, and
Mm-hmm.
the task list they call it as an APAR and the other related.
Hmm. So it's called the task list, right? Yeah. Okay. The reason, so we need to remember that define invoicing and payments configuration, the whole thing, folder name.
And we can search from here also,
Mhm.
like we can just give the percentage,
Yeah, yeah.
and from here we can select. And once
Uh-huh.
we get into the result, so here we will have an icon, like kind of
Uh-huh.
reverse this thing, arrow.
Shows the upward arrow, right?
Yeah. From there we
Okay.
can identify the exact navigation.
Mhm.
Yeah. So here we can just define the supplier number.
Mhm.
So it is not suggested in middle. If you see, I can change the number. But if I
Mhm.
change the number now, at this
Mhm.
point, I'll have some
Mhm.
validation issues
Mm.
because I have started my transaction. I have started creating the supplier from the number 1425. So by
Mhm.
this time, I might have, at least maybe in a month, after a month, I'm just checking this particular
Mhm.
configuration. So
Mhm.
now if I'm changing back to maybe 1426,
Yeah, yeah.
so which means the supplier has been created already. So now if I
Mhm.
create this, which
It's
means I'm changing,
overlapping.
yeah, so we will have the validation issue.
Mhm.
So it is always suggested to have while creating it. This should be frozen
Mhm.
logically, but
Mhm.
Oracle has given this as a free field.
Oh.
Yeah. Uh,
So tell me something. It's a basic question. Of course, it's
yes.
a very basic one.
Yeah.
So when, let's say, there is one consultant for GL
Okay.
configurations,
Okay.
one consultant doing the AP, one AR, let's
Okay.
assume. So unless and until the GL consultant finishes his basic, chart of account structure and all that, the subledger consultants cannot go and do anything.
Yeah.
True?
Yes. Correct.
Yeah.
They cannot do anything.
Okay. Okay. So they'll have to wait for this person to finish so that they know exactly which business unit to use and all that.
Yes. Correct.
Okay.
So we have the dependency with GL basically.
Hmm.
Yeah. So after creating or after enabling the supplier numbering, so
Hmm.
basically we can create the supplier. So what I'm thinking is that I'll just show when we are doing the actual transaction. So which means
Hmm.
creating an invoice. So we have two types of creating the supplier. So one is
Hmm.
using the normal way, so that is manual supplier, and the
Hmm.
other way is to create through the FBTA, the file-based
Okay.
data import. So
Hmm.
through this option, basically we can import the suppliers.
Hmm.
So in real time, we will not create the manual supplier. So
Okay.
manual supplier is just for few emergency cases we'll be creating it, or maybe
Hmm.
after client goes into production, we will use the manual supplier.
Hmm.
But in terms of implementation in real time, basically it will be used by the FBTA templates. So
Okay.
where we can upload even the 20,000, 30,000 supplies.
Hmm.
So what we will do is that we will take this template from the Oracle repository, and we
Hmm.
will give it to the client. So
Okay.
client, what they will do is that they will write the query. Let's say
Hmm.
client is using a open source .NET system. So they will
Hmm.
write a query to extract this particular data, I mean supplier data based on the template
Hmm.
that we have given. So there are
Hmm.
few mandatory columns and the other non-mandatory columns as well. So the mandatory column will be pulled out from the .NET based system, and based on that we will get it. So once
Okay.
we get this file,
Hmm.
so we will upload the way how we saw for the chart of account values. So
Uh-huh.
similarly we will upload it, and after uploading, so
Hmm.
basically the supplies that whatever we have loaded, it will be imported in the Fusion application. So that we can see it in the manage supply.
Manage
So
supplier. Okay.
yeah. So this is how we will do it. So
Where
when,
is that managed supplier under what it is coming? It
yeah,
says
it is
manage.
not here, so it will be here under the landing page.
Oh.
Yeah, so that will be under procurement. So we will not see under payable. So if you see
Oh,
under,
so it's not under payables.
yeah, it is under procurement.
Okay.
So that is why to create the supplier, so we
Mm,
need to have the procurement agent created for this particular
oh,
employee.
okay. Because normally when you think you'll, I mean, at least like people like me who haven't worked will assume that it's under payables, right?
Yeah.
So,
No, even in EBS it is under payable module, but now they have taken into this one procurement.
procurement.
Yeah.
Okay.
The reason they have taken this into procurement is that mostly the supplier in real-time scenario, the
Mm-hmm.
procurement will be created or requested by the purchasing department. So once this is requested, the accounts department might create or an admin from the procurement team. So they will be
Mm-hmm.
creating the supplier. So that is the reason Oracle has shifted the supplier from the payable module to the receivable module tab.
Okay.
Yeah, and again here, if you see in the supplier, so basically we
Mm-hmm.
have the normal supplier that we have spent authorized, and we have also the other supplier called prospect suppliers. Yeah, I didn't assign the role, so that is why I'm not seeing the create supplier. So in
Okay.
this case, I will have only two options: whether I can manage, which means I'll be able to query it, or I can import the supplier.
Okay. So for that, for you to create the supplier, what role do you need?
I need this one, supplier manager and buyer.
So two roles.
Yeah,
Oh, okay.
and also the particular employee called TrainT should have been created as an
Hmm.
employee and the procurement agent.
Okay. Interesting.
Yeah, so that is why I wanted to show after the final configuration.
Oh, so this one you'll show after, right?
Yeah, yes, yes. After we are
Okay,
seeing
good.
only
Show
the
me.
base. Yeah,
Okay, show me the configurations first, and then we'll talk about the roles and the other
yeah,
things.
yes, yes.
And also, when you are going after the configuration part, right? When you go
Yeah.
into the transaction part, can you also talk to me about that? What do you call the TCA structure?
TCA is architecture. This one. Uh,
Yeah, the this one, right? The parties, the HG, whatever that HZ parties and
I
all that.
mean,
Supplier, whatever. I don't know
yeah,
what they're.
TCA will be more of CRM and the other collection related process.
But does
Mm,
it come under, I mean, for suppliers, do they have a TCA TCA structure or no?
no,
For
for supplier
Fusion?
we don't need actually. I mean, I couldn't relate like in which context you're asking this.
No, no, the reason I'm asking that is because, for me to just have a general idea of what that exactly the TCA structure is and all that. What is important in that? Even if you, can give me a general idea about how it is done.
Yeah, generally speaking, TCA is architecture where we will use mostly for uh, the uh, the CRM modules where we have collection queues and the other things. So we will utilize this TCA to integrate the customer and the vendor. So that is when we will utilize this. But in normal scenario, basically we will not utilize or use this TCA. So
That,
TCA
that-
is rarely
yeah,
used.
the reason I'm asking that is because,
Yeah.
so let's say if somebody in the interview asks, tell us about the TCA or something. So
Hmm.
what do you say? That's why.
Uh, I
So,
have to check because I haven't
yeah, you
worked on
check and
TCA.
let me know. I mean, you check and let me know because that usually the TCA structure is used in terms of suppliers and customers.
Yeah, because I had to check because I haven't seen TCA in Fusion. So maybe I'll check and I'll get back to you.
Yeah, yeah, not a problem. I was just curious because, that is something that I think a lot of people
Yeah,
expect you to know, right? So
yeah, yeah,
that's
not
fine. Let's move on with the configurations.
yeah. So here we have a new feature in Fusion basically. So this one we need access to the Oracle as an client. So this we can experience only in the real time, but I just wanted to give the information about this. So we
Mm-hmm,
have something called automated invoice processing.
mm-hmm,
So what will happen here is that so we will give the port details and the other information here. So once
mm-hmm,
this is set up, so what will happen in the system is that so after this configuration, we will give roles and the other things, the basic configurations. So once this is done, in
mm-hmm,
transaction, what will happen in real time is that so I will have a physical copy of the invoice. So I'll
mm-hmm,
just take a snap of it. So I will send the snap to the Oracle. So Oracle will give us the mail ID. So where Oracle will process this particular snap that we are sending it. So
mm-hmm,
through that particular snap, Oracle will send us through the UCM, that is middleware. So from
mm-hmm,
there, we will receive this as an invoice. So we don't need to create invoice physically. So it will be
mm-hmm.
created or it will be automated through the Oracle to create this invoice automatically. So we
Okay.
will receive it in the Fusion application directly. So we will only validate and process the accounting. So we will not create invoice and the other things.
Mm.
So this is
So
one.
do the companies use this a lot?
Yeah, mostly company uses this. I haven't seen here in Middle East, but
Mm-hmm,
in this one, there was another project in Nigeria. So there I have seen client using this.
mm,
So so basically, this is kind of an ML like the machine learning. So
mm-hmm,
using machine learning and the OCR technology, they have created a concept that based on the reading the particular page, system is creating the invoice and transferring it through the UCM. So that is
mm-hmm,
through our this one FBDI templates that we are importing, right? So
mm-hmm.
it will be scheduled and it will pull in all the invoices that Oracle is processing and sending to us.
Okay.
So with this, we will get this.
So let's assume I'm in a company where they don't have whatever you said, the machine learning, whatever. And then I just take a snapshot of the physical copy of the invoice
Yeah.
that gets transferred to the system. How? Through how do we transfer it?
Yeah, we have a mail ID from Oracle will give us the mail ID like
Uh,
to where we the invoice will be processed. So the moment we give this particular copy to the invoice, Oracle will process it, and after processing, it will come to our Fusion application through the UCM platform. So
mm-hmm,
UCM is one of our middleware product.
mm-hmm,
So if you see here in scheduled process, we have something called import invoices.
mm-hmm,
So it will be scheduled for maybe every 1 hour or maybe every 30 minutes we can schedule it. So
mm-hmm,
which means system will pick this particular file. So if there is a file, system will process it and the
mm-hmm.
system will import into Fusion application.
Okay.
So this is the normal process. So it is like this is kind of a technical work where
Mm-hmm,
technical people will write a few queries using this SOAP UI and the
mm-hmm,
REST API, this thing. So they will
mm-hmm.
write a code there. So basically, using the REST API is the most of the cases that I have seen because that is based on the JSON object. So using this,
Uh-huh.
they will write the code and they will import the transaction. So this is how we will basically get this. Because if you are taking past model, so there we will have the access, complete control. So those
Okay.
cases is different because there we will have the port details and the other thing. In SaaS
Uh-huh.
model, basically we will not have those port details and this thing. It will be entirely
Yeah.
controlled by Oracle.
Okay.
So that is why we are automating this particular function called the Excel based invoice import. So
Okay.
based on that, we are getting the invoices into Fusion application.
Okay. And in configuration wise, what do we have to define anything here?
No, configuration wise, we need to have a few prerequisites like the basic configuration. So that we will be seeing they like the payment terms, the common options, and the other things.
Okay. And when you say, right, I get what you just said, but let's say that screenshot is there, right?
Yeah,
How do you transfer that screenshot to Oracle?
through mail. We will just send us a direct mail.
Oh, to email.
Yeah, yes,
Okay.
correct. Email.
Oh, to email them, you email it to Oracle.
Yes,
So
correct.
there'll be a common email that will be provided where you can send this
Yeah,
information.
yes, correct. They will give a common email, so where we can send only the invoice processing related copies. So which means
Interesting.
I have two business unit. So whichever
Mm-hmm.
business unit I'm taking this snapshot, I'll utilize only this particular the Oracle ID.
Mm, okay.
So Oracle
So
will,
I'm sure that must be an automated process, right? For them
yes.
to send a mail ID. Okay.
I mean
Okay.
sending mail you are asking or
No, no. What I'm trying to say is, let's say if I take a screenshot and I
yeah,
send it
yeah,
from my company per day, I may send 50 screenshots.
yeah,
I don't think any person will be sitting there and checking that email and sending me the mail ID. Some automated system must be there on the
yeah.
Oracle side
Yes,
to
correct.
send that mail ID as soon as this hits their system.
Yes. So that is what I was saying. The ML machine learning. So
Okay.
in machine learning, we have a technology called OCR. So basically,
Mm-hmm.
what OCR, what it will do is that it will be used in multiple platforms, like even the blockchains we are using the OCR technology. So
Mm-hmm.
basically, OCR will do this thing. Like I have this one OCR built in.
Mm-hmm.
So this will be installed in the particular mobile. So in
Mm-hmm.
this mobile, if I scan, let's say I have an use case where
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to identify whether this is an original product or a duplicate product. So
Mm-hmm.
what I will do is that I'll take the original and I'll
Mm-hmm.
take a screenshot of it, and I'll take the another one that is replica of the original. So I can just take the snap and I
Mm-hmm.
can try to identify whether this is an original or replica. This machine
Mm-hmm.
learning code, it will detect and it will say that these are the areas that we can see the differences.
Mm.
So based on this technology, Oracle is taking part of it and scans the invoice, and this invoice is been converted into the transaction. So that is again the invoice. The
Mm.
physical copy is been converted to the software, the soft copy of it, and it has
Okay.
been pushed from Oracle to our Fusion application, client's application.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so this is how we are getting the
So
invoices.
you're using that in your company?
No, I haven't seen. So other
Not
project,
yet.
so
Okay.
I was
Other
not part
project.
of that project, but I have seen that.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Interesting though. Yeah. So, and it reads like whatever format the invoice is in, or does it have to be a specific format? Let's say, because invoices can be different for different, I mean, different,
Yeah,
the physical copy itself can be different,
yeah,
right? The way it's structured.
yes, correct. So
So it
basically,
still reads through that.
yeah. So even though it is in different format, like let's say I have in the end of the page, I have the invoice number. On top
Uh-huh.
of the page, the invoice number. It will
Uh-huh.
scan and it will pick only the mandatory information that will be required to process this invoice. So
Yeah, okay.
whichever format we are giving, system will pick and it will process the invoices.
Okay, okay.
Yeah, fine.
Uh-huh.
Okay, so we will start with our basic configuration. So the first one would be the payment terms. So
So
here,
the first steps that we would start off with AP is business unit related,
yeah,
and then we do the managed payment terms.
yes, correct.
Okay.
Yeah. So here, if you see, so this is seeded payment term that was given by Oracle.
Mm-hmm.
So, so this is kind of an one-time setup. So I
Mm-hmm.
will not be able to change this name. So I can
Mm-hmm.
change only the description, but name will be always immediate. If I wanted to have unique name or the payment unique name, so I
Mm-hmm.
need to create a new one. So
Okay.
or if I wanted to use only the existing one
Mm-hmm.
given by Oracle, so I don't need to
Mm-hmm.
do anything. So all I need to do is that from here, I can
Okay.
just click add. So this
Mm-hmm.
will create an assignment. So here we can select the HWRDs that we created.
RDS. Okay.
Yeah. So this is what we created. We gave description as in reference data set.
We have two there, right? One is underscore RDS and one is
Yeah.
HWRDS. What's the difference? I mean, you created
Yeah,
it twice.
that I created earlier. So
Okay,
even
okay.
before creating this business unit called HW business unit, I
Mm-hmm.
created another BU called HW underscore BU. So for that I created the reference
The
data set
underscore.
as an underscore.
Okay.
But this is the one that we created now.
Oh, now I understood. So whatever you want in terms of payment terms, so you just attach the reference set there.
Yeah. Yes,
Okay.
I don't need to do any setups here.
Okay.
Yeah. So the next option that we have is the tolerance. So this will not be used by all the companies. Like
Mm-hmm.
if we wanted to set up, we can set up. So this is an optional setup. If you see that manage invoice tolerance, so that will be an optional. But setup wise, I'll just explain it. So here we
Mm-hmm.
can do either by the amount or by the quantity.
Mm-hmm.
So what are the options that we will have is that so this will be mostly for the PO invoices. For
Mm-hmm.
non-PO invoices, so we will not have this tolerance limits set up. So the reason for that is that so the tolerance where we are using is that when we are importing the purchase order or when we are matching the purchase order.
Mm-hmm.
So let's say I ordered for 10 quantity
Mm-hmm.
and I received 8 quantity,
Mm-hmm.
and my matching rule states that it should be based on the receipt.
Mm-hmm.
So, which means I might have ordered for the 10 quantity and I have received only 8 quantity. So, I will do invoicing on 8 quantities. So,
Mm-hmm.
here in the invoice, of, if I'm giving maybe 9 quantities, if I'm
Mm-hmm.
changing from 8 to 9, so which means system will give me validation and it will put in hold. I mean, this particular
Mm-hmm.
invoice will be in hold. So if I set up this tolerance, which means I can say maybe the quantity. So if
Mm-hmm.
I enable this as an quantity, so
Mm-hmm.
here we have enabled it as an amount. So which means 10 rupees. So
Mm-hmm.
similarly, I can enable it as an quantity. So which means
Mm-hmm.
I can say two quantities as an exception. So
Mm-hmm.
even though I have given the matching rule based on the PO matching, so that is for the receipt. So I have received only 8 quantities. So actually it should have been only the 8 quantities. But in this case, since I have set up the tolerance for two, I can match even with 10 quantities. So this is the difference.
So let me go back and try
Yeah,
to reiterate what you were saying.
yeah.
So
I'll
when you come here and set up the tolerance, right, and you say a tolerance limit of 10%. So when you take amount based, anything when you check active, right, let's say it takes 10% above 10 rupees.
yeah.
Okay.
I'll just explain. I'll just take maybe 2 minutes and explain this. So here, if you see
Mm-hmm.
the transaction or the scenario that we are taking is that, so in normal scenario, so if we take out the tolerance part, so normal
Mm-hmm.
scenario based on the setup that I have done is
Mm-hmm.
based on the three-way matching, that is based on the receipt. So we have different matching rules. So one is
Mm-hmm.
the two rule. So that is we will just match in the invoice, and so that will match between the PO and this thing. And three-way is that we will have receipt part also involved in it. And we
Okay.
have four-way matching. Four-way matching is nothing but I have received the quantity, but
Mm-hmm.
after receiving, I'll do inspection that whether the ordered items are in par with the quality check and the other things. So after that,
Mm-hmm.
I'll give the inspection approval. So these are
Okay.
the three kind of matching rule that we can have. So
Mm-hmm.
here I have given this as an receipt. So which means how much ever quantity I have received, I'll create an invoice for this.
Mm-hmm.
So based on this, if you see the quantity that I have ordered is 10 and the quantity that I have received is 8. So
Mm-hmm.
now I'm trying to make an invoice for 9. So which
Mm-hmm.
means I'm billing more than what I have received. So
Yes.
so here something is going wrong.
Mm-hmm.
So that is why we will have control on this matching rule, whether we wanted to have it on the receipt or inspection or the PO.
Okay.
So there are very rare cases that we will use the tolerance. So when we are utilizing this tolerance, so what will happen is
Mm-hmm.
that since I have given here two quantity, so this can be either in amount or it can be in quantity. So
Mm-hmm.
since I have given it in quantity, so if you see my receipt quantity is 8
Okay.
and my invoice quantity is 9. So which means
Mm-hmm.
this will be enforced in case of tolerance.
Mm-hmm.
So for non-tolerance,
It'll be a fail.
yeah. So this will go in hold. So system will
Okay.
say that matching rule overrides.
Okay.
So this will go
So
in
tell me
hold.
something. So how can something be invoiced at 9 when you received only 8? Is that even possible?
Yeah, there will be few cases where what will happen is that the person, so this will be handled, the purchase order, so this will be handled
Mm-hmm.
by the procurement executive, and this will be handled by the inventory executive,
Mm-hmm.
and this will be handled by accounts team.
Mm-hmm.
So procurement has ordered for 10 quantity.
Mm-hmm.
So in inventory we are receiving 9 quantity, but by mistake he has entered it as an 8. So this is an one time this thing. Once we are saved, so
Mm-hmm.
if we wanted to create it this as a 9, so we should create this as a different transaction saying one quantity received. So this will
Mm-hmm.
create a different receipt number. So
Mm-hmm.
for that reason, so he didn't update this particular receipt, and what he will the guy who's sitting in the accounts department, what he will do is that he will say
He'll
9.
combine both.
Yeah, no, if he has created
No,
two,
combine the one. So what you said was first if he received 8, right?
yeah,
And then he created another one for one additional one.
yeah,
So
if
when it comes to the accounts person, he will add that 8 and that one that was created separately.
no,
No?
like no, I'm not. That case is also possible, but
I don't know. I was thinking that was what you explained.
No, no. I'll explain it again. So I have ordered for 10 quantities. So
Uh-huh.
in this case, if you see, I have marked this as an 8 to
Mm-hmm.
avoid two receipts. Because if you see, when I receive this particular item, I will
Uh-huh.
have physical copy of the receipt from the vendor.
Okay.
So whatever invoice number is there, I'll just supply it here in the Oracle Fusion, and
Mm-hmm.
this will create an receipt, and this will be matched against the invoice. So
Mm-hmm.
in this case, let's say the invoice number that vendor has given me is 7812.
Mm-hmm.
So this receipt number cannot be duplicated. So by
Mm-hmm.
mistake, I have entered this as an quantity as an 8. So
Okay.
now if I wanted to add another one, so I cannot change this to 9. So I need
Mm-hmm.
to create a new receipt. So if I'm creating a new receipt, I cannot use this receipt number called 7812 since it is already created.
Okay.
So to avoid this, so this will be overbuilt. So in
Mm.
description, accounts executive will mention that this is an underbuild, and he will give the bill number, that is 7812, and he will give the respective description. So in these cases we can do it, and apart from that, maybe if you wanted to add 7812 underscore 1, so which means that this is an addition to what we have invoiced it or what we
Mm-hmm.
have received it, so that is
Mm-hmm.
also possible. But I was explaining this case where we will not be able to create the new receipt since the
Mm-hmm.
physical copy receipt number is 7812 and I cannot create the new receipt number.
Okay.
So for those cases, we might receive or we might invoice as 9.
Okay.
Yeah. So for these cases, maybe we can utilize the tolerance.
Mm-hmm.
So that is about the tolerance. So if it is non-tolerance, so which means this will stop us. So this will not
Okay.
allow us to create the invoice since the receipt quantity is only 8.
Okay.
Yeah. So this is about the tolerance.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, fine, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So that's what we have for audit percentage, and we have the for the receipt, and if we wanted to have it for the conversion, so that we can have it, or if you
Mm-hmm.
wanted to have the total invoice itself, so that we can have it.
Mm-hmm.
So based on
Okay.
each criteria, we can set up the tolerances. So that is
Okay.
for amount or quantity.
So this tolerance usually will be defined based on the requirement that the business gives.
Yes, correct.
Okay. Otherwise, this is not mandatory.
Yeah, this is not mandatory. This is the option. Like if you see here, so we will not
Mm-hmm.
have this asterisk. So which means this is an optional configuration.
Okay.
Yeah. So the payment terms is mandatory with asterisk, and this is an
Mm-hmm.
option.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. So we have procurement agent configuration as well. So we will see after we define the employees and the other things. So before
Okay.
that, we will see the other basic configuration. So this is,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I'll just start with the common options for payables and procurement. So since this will be utilized by both the payables and procurement, so we
Mm-hmm.
have enabled our Oracle has given the name as an procurement and financials.
Okay.
Yeah, I think ours is SW business unit.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll just select this. I think our business unit is different.
Oh, so if we didn't enable that function.
No, actually we enabled it. Maybe I'm selecting different business unit. It should be underscore BU, I guess.
Oh.
Yeah, underscore
Mm.
BU.
Then I think then we'll have to change our payment term also, right? Reference data set segment.
No, this is the one we attached, I think. Let me
No,
check.
I think we untouched what? HW RDS. We did not use underscore RDS. I mean, if
No,
that's
this is
truly what is.
not reference data set. Okay, 1 minute. Let me check the RDs as well.
So for immediate, when you did, right, I think you added without underscore.
No, this is the one that we used actually. SW underscore BU.
Okay,
We
so
just
the same BU. Okay.
we can check this one. Yeah, so this is the one that no, just a minute.
Yeah, but for immediate, we used without underscore.
Maybe for payment term we attached.
Yeah, for payment terms only, I meant.
Yeah, correct. This should be R should be HW underscore business unit. Yeah, yeah. Payment terms it is correct, but maybe here while giving the function.
Business, yeah, either this or that has to be changed.
Yeah, correct, correct. Here we didn't change the business unit. We just went there because yeah, I remember now we didn't enable the functions. We are just seeing that already enabled one.
Hmm.
I need to enable the functions here. Yeah, so we have given it. Actually, we have created, we attached right on for the payment terms, but we didn't give the business functions
Mm.
to this BU.
Okay.
Yeah, so I have given the business function. So maybe we can change the scope to our business unit. Yeah, so this is HW business unit.
Hmm.
So basically here we have a few accounts to be different. So if you see, so when we are
Hmm.
creating an new invoice, so the accounting
Hmm.
entry would be expense account to the liability account. So expense account will be booked based on if we are doing the PO matched invoices. So which means
Hmm.
we have created the purchase order and we have
Hmm.
received the item. So based on
Hmm.
this, if we are matching the invoice, so we will have this expense account coming in from the purchasing or the procurement module.
Hmm.
But whereas for the manual invoices, it will be from the manual entry. So user will typically enter only the expense account, but whereas the liability account will not be entered by the user. So it will
Mm.
be generated automatically by the OF by the configuration that we are giving. So
Okay.
here there are two level of configurations that we can give. So either we can give it here at the common options or we can give it at the supplier. So if the system will basically validate from the supplier. So if this account is not available with the supplier configuration,
Hmm.
so its system will pick from the common option. So if it is not available in the common option also, system will give the accounting error. So that account is not generated. So this will be common for both liability account and the prepayment account.
Okay.
Yeah. So these are the two accounts that we will use. Basically, prepayment is nothing but the advance payments.
Okay.
So for that accounts will be generated based on this one. So we don't need to enter any accounts. It will be generated automatically based on the configuration. And then we have the bills payable. So bills payable is something that let's say I have a payment method called letter of credit.
Mm-hmm.
So for letter of credit, what will happen is that the business scenario will work something like this. So I procure from vendor A, and
Mm-hmm.
vendor A says that I cannot wait for 60 days as you stipulated. So I will need this particular thing from maybe 7 days or 10 days. So what we will do is that we will prepare a letter of credit to the bank, and this is subject to the bank's what do you call the approval and the other things. So
Mm-hmm.
once this is done, so the letter of credit will be given to the bank, and customer bank, that is our bank, will come.
Arun, can you hold on for a second, please?
Yeah, yeah.
Just a minute. Uh, Sorry about that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have to go again to pick my daughter. So, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, maybe if you wanted to go,
No,
maybe.
no, no. That's fine. That's fine. I mean, unless you want to stop it, it's. I mean, I'm okay.
No, no, no. Yeah. So, so bills payable is something that we have a bank. So that is
Mm-hmm.
we have two banks. So that is vendor bank and the customer bank. So
Okay.
basically, this vendor bank will communicate with the customer bank, and customer bank will initiate this process. This is kind of a guarantee. So this guarantee will make sure that the payment will be processed in time. So this vendor customer bank will send the amount to the vendor bank, and vendor bank will in turn gives the amount to the actual vendor.
Mm-hmm.
So on the maturity date, this particular customer or our own client will
Mm-hmm.
give the amount to the bank. So that is customer bank.
Okay.
So for this process, we have something called bills payable. So this bills payable will this will have a sort of report. So based on this, so basically this will updates on the particular maturity date that payment has been processed. So until then, so we will have this under the negotiable. So which means it has been processed from the bank, but we haven't given it to the bank. So this is
Mm-hmm.
the identification. So for this purpose, we have this bills payable. So if you
Mm-hmm.
see, this is an optional account that to be given,
Okay.
because it's not that all client or all the customers will use this functionality. So this is again specific to the business requirement.
Okay.
And then we have conversion rate, variance gain, and the variance loss.
Okay.
So when we are seeing this GL module, so we saw something on the revaluation part. So the
Mm-hmm.
currency that I'm saying it today will not be same at the end of the period. So the
Yes.
system will calculate the gain or loss for this particular transaction. So in
Mm-hmm.
order to calculate that, so basically we need to give this rate variance gain or loss account. So that based on the system will pick the relevant entries.
So when you say conversion rate variance gain, right?
Yeah.
So are you taking the same conversion rate that was defined in GL?
No, this is not conversion rate. So this is the account that we are defining it.
Oh, just the account. Okay.
Yes. Yeah. Then we have the discount part. So maybe if you are using the discount, so
Mm-hmm.
mostly client will be using the discounting. So that is why if you see this will be mandatory account to be given.
Okay.
And apart from that, we have miscellaneous. So miscellaneous is for maybe the financial charges and the other things. Maybe we will have some bank related charges so that we can add it. So for
Mm-hmm.
that, we are just defining the account. So whatever we are seeing it in this page, so this will
Mm-hmm.
be only the account.
Okay.
And we have freight. So freight is also again kind of an line item in the invoice.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so this is prepayment tax difference. So this is the location based configuration.
Mm-hmm.
And then we have offset. So offset is nothing but it is kind of an mapping between two different this thing. So let's say I'm doing an intercompany transaction. So when I'm doing an intercompany transaction, so how does system understand that this is an intercompany transaction? So unless
Mm-hmm.
I have this automatic offset enabled, so
Mm-hmm.
system will not create the balancing segment values defined, or it will the entries will be unbalanced. So we
Mm-hmm.
will have some issues seeing there unless we have configured the intercompany configurations. So
Mm-hmm.
for that purpose, we can utilize this automatic offset.
Mm-hmm.
And then we have one-time payments. So for one-time payments, we can just give the liability account and the expense account.
Okay.
And the currency conversion. So we will just attach the rate. So what we saw is that corporate. So apart
Mm-hmm.
from that, if we have a special rate defined, so we can utilize it.
Mm-hmm.
And we have realized gain or loss account. So realized gain or loss account is something when the actual payment is made. So before
Mm-hmm.
payment, we say unrealized gain or loss. And
Mm-hmm.
after this is done, so we call this as an realized gain or loss.
Mm-hmm.
And we have expense accrual. So expense
So,
accrual,
okay, quick question. So, realized gain and I mean, this realized loss is there, right? So, is that how is it different from corporate rate variance loss and gain?
yeah,
In the sense, like there also you're looking at conversion rate, right?
yeah,
And you're saying you're trying to figure out the gain and the loss
yes,
and what's the difference, the variance. And then here also you are pretty much trying to see that in the sense like after you determine only you know whether it's a gain or a loss.
yeah. So basically, when there is an variance in the rates, so
Mm-hmm.
this is kind of an generic where we will try to identify the difference between the currency on the particular date when we did the transaction and today. But
Mm-hmm.
here, if you see, so this is specific to the realized gain. So this will not calculate for the unrealized or for the invoicing. So this will calculate only for the payment. So after
For
we
the
make
payment.
yeah, after we make payment, it will be realized gain or loss account. So that is when this will come into play.
So the conversion is even before you do all this.
Yeah, yes, that is generic.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. So we have something called accrue expenses. So we have two things. So one is expense. So this is kind of on procurement, but good to have the knowledge.
Mm-hmm.
So we have something called the expense type, and we have something called inventory type. So inventory type is nothing but we are procuring some raw material or some item for the sale. But the
Mm-hmm.
expense is something that maybe I need something for my office purpose, maybe the stationery and the other things. I can
Mm-hmm.
call this as an expense.
Mm-hmm.
So inventory will be always on the at receipt. But whereas for
Okay.
the expenses, I can have it at a receipt or I can have it at period end. So what is the difference? So when I create a particular purchase order or the receipt, so system
Mm-hmm.
will calculate the accrual when I'm placing the receipt. But whereas if I select period and for the expense items, so
Mm-hmm.
for this kind of item, system will calculate at end of the period. Instead
Okay.
of creating at the very beginning, system will create at the end of each period. So we will run
Okay.
the accrual process. So that will be done by the procurement consultants. But just
Mm-hmm.
for knowledge, we need to know like what is the difference between the receipt and the period end.
Okay. But what is the, I mean, what do we use on a regular basis? Is it at receipt or period end
No,
in companies?
it is mostly period end. The
Okay.
reason for that is that if we wanted to have this expense as an segregation, so that we will utilize this. So the other reason is that we don't want to combine this with the receipt and the other transactions. And
Mm-hmm.
the load for the expenses items will be very less. If you see in a manufacturing unit, I might
Mm-hmm.
procure for the administration purpose very like it will be very rare. But whereas
Mm-hmm.
for the manufacturing unit, for the purpose of the manufacturing, so I might have different those things. What do you call the different items that will be booking in a particular given period. So for
Mm-hmm.
the item, it should be always at receipt. So for
Okay.
reference, we can have the period and as well. So that depends on the client requirement.
Okay.
Yeah. So these are the options that we have. And apart from that, we have the gapless invoice number. Like if you don't want to have the gaps between the invoices, so we
Mm-hmm.
can just enable this option.
Okay.
And we have this one. So this one legal entity information. So this is specific to the countries.
Mm-hmm.
So let's say I'm implementing for US. So for US, I don't think we have VAT.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure. I'm thinking. I don't think we have it. So this will
Okay.
be specific to the countries.
Okay.
So based on that, we will give the bill to location. If we are enabling this legal entity information,
Mm-hmm.
so we have this one.
So
So
how what happens if you don't give that legal entity information? How does it suppress our AP? Where does it impact?
so we will not be able to calculate the VAT and the other calculation. So if you see here, so if
Okay.
I'm not using this, I'll be able to make the invoices, but I cannot do the actual taxation part of it.
Okay.
So this is optional always.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So that's all we have it in the common options.
So when you do this, right? So can we do this using our GL configurations, this liability prepayment and all this?
GL configuration in the sense whatever account we
In
are
the
getting.
sense like whatever we have, right? Let's say we have three segments.
Yeah.
Look, whatever department,
Yeah.
company department, and what was the other one?
Yeah.
Uh, account.
Yeah.
So can we create that using our three segments?
No, three segment in the sense you're
With
also.
the values that we have, right? Let's say we've defined the values in GL already, right? We know what we've defined. Let's say we have 1,000 for company and then department 1,000 or whatever, and then account we loaded something
Yeah.
into the system. So now if I have to create enter the values for liability, can I choose from what I have?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay. So the account is generally I just search for liability. Is that how I do it?
Yes. Correct.
Okay. Okay. So there is nothing for us to create here, but except just pick the values that were already created in GL.
Yes. Correct.
Okay, okay, that's what I'm trying to understand. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, here in this case, we'll not be able to complete the configuration since
Hmm.
we have this department value issue. So we should.
What was the issue with that?
So if you remember last session also, we created few journal entries and the other things using the department and the other values. But if you see here, so we are not
Hmm.
seeing any values in under department. So even
Oh,
though I
nothing is
have,
coming up. Oh,
yeah,
interesting. Okay.
so it should come up. So this I have to debug it basically.
Okay.
Yeah. Uh, yeah. So maybe we can stop for today.
Yeah.
Uh,
I think once if you actually fill this up and show me also, it'll make more sense
yeah. Yeah.
so that we know that whatever we are doing is at least working.
Yes. Yes. So I'll create a new one and maybe we can see it tomorrow.
Okay, not a problem.
Yeah. Tomorrow also we
Yes.
can have the session same time, right?
Tomorrow we can have it at 8:30. Is that okay?
Yeah. 8:30. I mean same time.
8. Yeah, for you in the evening, what is it?
Yes.
It's 1 hour, 1.5 hour
Yeah.
back.
Yes.
So
We
it's
can work from
probably
tomorrow.
7, I think.
Yeah.
So tomorrow, what will happen is anyway, I'll be busy with my class till 8:15, 8:20. So
Okay.
8:30, I'll join the class, and then we'll have the class till 10 o'clock.
Okay.
The reason I say that because from 10 again, I have 3.5 hours process again, one more.
Okay. Yeah.
So, so that's why it's kind of busy. So yeah. So tomorrow at about 1.5 hours
Yeah.
class. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you.